The wind clawed at the red earth like a starving dog, dragging dust across the sun-bleached boards of Brimstone Ridge. The town sat quiet under a steel sky, the kind that promised either a storm or nothing at all. In the center of it all, where the saloon's swinging doors creaked like old bones, Bo Maddox stepped in with the weight of 2 men and the eyes of a ghost. His coat, once black, now wore the sand of 100 miles. His revolver hung low and lazy on his hip, but there was nothing lazy about his movements. Men shifted in their chairs as he passed, pretending not to see him, but knowing damn well who he was. He sat down at a corner table back to the wall and dropped a tin plate on the wood. The beans were cold. The bread hard enough to chip a tooth. He chewed anyway. Old Cyrus, behind the bar, didn't bother asking how the job went. The blood on Bo's shirt said enough. Instead, he slid over a mug of coffee thick enough to stand a spoon in. "That sign still up?" Bo asked, voice gravel dragging across wood. Cyrus nodded toward the post outside the saloon. "Ain't many lookin' to cook for a man with a kill count higher than the county census." "I ain't a skin for companionship," Bo muttered. "Just hot food." Cyrus snorted. "Well, maybe don't put 'no questions' on the flyer. Makes folks think you're the kind of man with secrets." Bo didn't argue. He had more secrets than prayers. He drained the coffee and stood, bones aching like old regrets. Outside, the sky was still waiting to make up its mind. He tacked another notice to the post, same as the last. Cook wanted. Hot meals daily. No questions asked. Gold paid. Then he turned and headed toward the edge of town, where his shack sat like an apology against the ridge. 3 days passed. No replies. On the 4th morning, a figure appeared by the post just as the sun broke through the clouds. A woman, plain dress, dark shawl, boots more dust than leather. She studied the paper like it might bite her. Bo watched from the blacksmith's porch, chewing a matchstick. She didn't fidget. Didn't glance around. Just folded the notice, tucked it into her pocket, and started walking toward his cabin like she'd already made up her mind. He met her halfway down the trail. "You answerin' the notice?" he asked. She stopped, eyes steady. Brown like turned soil. "I cook. I clean. I don't talk." He blinked. "You got a name?" "You said no questions." "Touché." He stepped aside. "Kitchen's out back. Let's see what you can do." She followed him without another word. She didn't walk like a servant. She walked like someone who'd had to outrun worse things than men. Inside, the shack was sparse. Bed, stove, battered table, single shelf with a Bible no one opened. She took one look at the place, rolled up her sleeves, and got to work. An hour later, Bo tasted something he hadn't in months: salt, heat, a whisper of herbs. The stew wasn't fancy, but it made him close his eyes without meaning to. She cleaned the pot, left a plate covered on the table, and moved to the door. "What do I owe you?" She paused. "You pay at the end of the week. Like any job." Then she left. Each day after, she came at dawn and left before sunset. Never late. Never early. Always alone. The meals got better. So did the smell of his cabin. And for reasons he didn't examine too closely, so did his sleep. She never spoke unless she had to. Bo didn't press her. But he noticed things. She always brought her own knife. Not the kind for cooking. She never ate a bite. She flinched, ever so slightly, at loud sounds, hammer on iron, gunshots in the distance, a dropped pan. Once he offered to pay her extra. She refused with a shake of her head and a look that said, "Don't insult me." And always she left just before the sky turned orange. Cyrus asked him one night over cards, "You trust her?" "No," Bo said. "But I respect her." Truth was, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Not in the way men think about women. In the way wounded things recognize each other. On the 7th day she didn't show. By mid-morning Bo was pacing. By afternoon he was saddled up. She hadn't said where she stayed. She never gave a name, much less an address. But Bo had tracked men through worse. He started with the saloon, where Etta Dunn sat watching the world like she owned it. "She ever speak to you?" he asked. Etta took a long drag on her pipe. "You mean the quiet one? Comes in before sunrise, buys beans and flour, sometimes a bit of salt pork." "That's her. She walks east when she leaves town. Into the hills. Alone? Far as I know. But she walks like she's never really alone, if you catch my meaning." He did. Bo rode out before dusk, past the watering holes and dust gullies, into land too rough for farming and too wild for cattle. Tracks were light but present, small boot prints carefully placed. She was good at hiding. But he was better at finding. As the sun dropped, he saw a flicker of light in the hollow. He dismounted, walked slow. The old chapel stood half-burnt and forgotten, ribs of wood jutting out like bones. Candlelight flickered behind a stained-glass window cracked straight through the heart of an angel. He drew closer. Laughter rang out, high, young, unrestrained. Children. Bo crouched behind a thicket and peered inside. 7 of them. All different ages. A girl of maybe 15 stirred a pot while a boy with a slingshot pretended to duel a broom. 2 smaller ones argued over a rag doll. A baby gurgled in a crate lined with quilts. The quiet woman, his cook, moved between them, checking the food, tying laces, brushing hair from tiny faces. She wasn't their mother. She was too young. Too distant. But she was theirs and they were hers. Bo's stomach turned. She had nothing. Not even a name. But she fed them with hands that never shook. Shielded them with eyes that never blinked. And he'd been giving her gold for stew, not knowing it was feeding more mouths than his own. He stepped forward. She spun, shotgun already in hand. The barrel found his chest. "You followed me," she said, voice low. He didn't raise his hands. Just looked at the children. Then back at her. "They yours. They're mine to keep safe." The oldest girl stepped forward, bold. "He gonna tell?" "I ain't decided yet," Bo said honestly. The woman's jaw tensed. "I didn't steal. I didn't lie. You paid for meals. You got meals. Wasn't accusing you. Then why were you here?" He looked around the makeshift home, blankets for doors, broken pews for beds. And still the smell of stew in the air. "Because you didn't show up today. And I worried." That surprised her. Surprised him too. She lowered the shotgun. One of the boys tugged her skirt. "Nora, he gonna tell?" Bo heard the name like a bell in his chest. The first true thing he'd learned about her. "I ain't gonna tell," he said. She nodded once like a truce. "You need anything?" She stared at him for a long time. Then, everything. He turned without another word and headed into the dark. Behind him, the chapel glowed like a lantern against the night, and the sound of children's laughter floated out into the emptiness, bright and defiant. Bo Maddox rode home slower than he'd arrived. The dust no longer bit at his face. The wind didn't howl quite so loud. He had questions now. Plenty of them. But he also had something else. A reason to go back. The next morning, Bo Maddox stood in front of the general store with a burlap sack over one shoulder and a mind full of contradictions. He hadn't slept. Not well anyway. Not with the image of that chapel. Burnt wood, candlelit faces, and the quiet strength of a woman named Nora feeding 7 children from a single pot of hope. He bought extra beans, rice, flour, jerky, salt, and coffee, more than he'd need for a month. Cyrus raised an eyebrow when he saw the load. "Expectin' company?" "Something like that." Bo strapped the supplies to his mule and rode out while the sun was still shaking off the night. His horse knew the trail now, and the hoofbeats fell into rhythm with the quiet pounding in his chest. He didn't understand why it mattered, but it did. He reached the hollow just as the sky turned gold. Smoke curled from the chimney pipe that stuck awkwardly through the chapel's broken roof. The front doors were cracked open. Inside, the pews had been rearranged into a wall of sorts, keeping the little ones from wandering. Blankets hung from nails for privacy. It wasn't a home. It was a defense. Nora was at the stove, sleeves rolled up, face lit by the flicker of firelight. She didn't turn when he stepped inside. "I didn't ask you to come back." "No. But I came anyway." "You bring your judgment with you?" He dropped the burlap sack onto a bench. "Just food." That made her pause. The oldest girl, Ruthie if he recalled right, peeked over the top of a pew wall, hand already resting on a slingshot tucked into her belt. She had her mother's fire, even if Bo didn't know who that mother had been. "You work for him now?" she asked, chin lifted like a duelist. Nora shook her head. "He's not here for work." "Then what?" "Let's find out," Nora murmured, finally turning. Her face was drawn, tired beneath the surface. But her eyes held. Still no fear, just steel. She looked at the sack. "That's more food than one man needs. I figure you're feeding 8. She glanced toward the children. "They don't take charity." "It ain't charity if I'm paying for it." "You paid for stew. You got stew. I'm paying extra now." Her arms folded. "Why?" He didn't have a neat answer. So he gave her the honest one. "Because you're feeding kids in a place built for ghosts. Because you look over your shoulder like someone's still chasing you. Because you showed up every damn day to feed a man like me and never asked for a thing." Nora studied him for a long while. Her eyes scanned his face like she was waiting for the punchline to land. When it didn't, she moved back to the stove. "Ruthie, show him where to put the sack." The girl made a face but climbed over the bench and snatched the sack with the ease of someone used to carrying weight too heavy for her age. She disappeared into a side room that had once been the pastor's quarters. Bo watched the other children out of the corner of his eye. They were quiet now, sizing him up. The younger ones leaned against each other, and the baby slept in a drawer cushioned with folded blankets. "Where'd they all come from?" he asked. Nora stirred the pot. "Same place I did. Fire and ashes." He waited, sensing that was all he'd get. But the silence stretched until her voice came again, soft and reluctant. "My father ran this chapel. Preacher Vale. He believed in salvation. Even out here." Bo looked around. Town left him behind? Raiders did. They burned it all. He died trying to keep the doors open. I lived. Took what I could, kept the place from falling in. Bo's voice dropped. "The kids." She glanced toward the sleeping baby. "Some are blood. Most ain't. Orphans. Lost ones. Passed from wagon to wagon like unwanted parcels. Nobody wanted 7 mouths. I did." He shifted. "That's a lot of mouths for one pair of hands. Someone had to feed them. Someone had to care. You ever ask for help?" She laughed under her breath. "And say what? That I'm playing mama to half the desert's orphans? You think that buys sympathy?" Bo didn't answer. He didn't need to. The boy with the slingshot, Joey, sidled up to him now, blue-eyed and wild-haired. He poked Bo's coat. "You a killer?" "Sometimes." "Ever kill someone with just your hands?" Bo gave him a sidelong glance. "You planning to try?" Joey grinned. "Nah. Just like stories." "You got any chores to do?" Nora called without turning. Joey groaned and wandered off, slingshot bouncing at his hip. Ruthie reappeared from the back, brushing off her hands. "He's harmless," she said. "Just likes the idea of things." Bo eyed her. "How old are you?" "Old enough to shoot straight." He smiled a little. "I don't doubt that." He stayed for an hour. Watched the morning routine unfold like a quiet ritual. Ruthie boiled water for laundry. Marta, the nervous girl with clever hands, braided Daisy's hair. The twins argued over who could run faster. Nora moved among them like a compass needle, keeping true north even when the world spun. When he stood to leave, she met him at the door. "You said you wouldn't tell," she said. "I won't. But someone will. Sooner or later." Bo nodded. "Then we get ready." She blinked. "We." He held her gaze. "I don't walk away from things I understand. Do you?" "Understand you? No, not yet. But I understand loss. And hiding. And why you carry that knife." Something in her eyes flickered, softer now. "Tell the kids I'll be back tomorrow." "For what?" "To fix that roof. Winter'll be bad out here." She didn't say thank you. Just nodded and stepped back, letting him go. Outside, the wind had lost its bite. The sun was climbing fast, painting the desert gold. Bo saddled his horse and turned for town, already thinking about nails, timber, and where to get glass that wouldn't break easy. He didn't hear the door close behind him, but he felt it. Like a promise. Or a warning. Back in Brimstone Ridge, folks were starting to notice. Cyrus raised a brow when Bo came in asking for roofing nails and canvas. "You buildin' something?" "Fixin' something." "You don't strike me as the fixin' type." "Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I am now." Cyrus handed over the supplies without comment, but his eyes said he'd be watching. People always did when a man changed his ways. Bo didn't care. He rode back the next day and the next after that. Fixed the roof with quiet hands and a thoughtful frown. Never asked questions. Never crossed the invisible lines Nora laid between them. The kids warmed to him in strange ways. Joey challenged him to races. Marta asked him to sharpen her sewing needle. Ruthie started trusting him enough to let him read by the fire when the work was done. But it wasn't peace. Not really. One afternoon, as he repaired a broken window, Ruthie climbed up beside him with a basket of kindling. "You know they'll come, right?" she said. Bo didn't look up. "Who?" "The ones looking for us. The ones that get paid to take us away. It's happened before." He drove a nail into the frame. "Well, they ain't taking you while I'm breathing." She smiled a little. "Then you better breathe careful, Mr. Maddox." He looked down at her. Saw the same fire Nora had, the same resilience, sharpened by dirt and hunger and love that had no name. He nodded once. "I intend to." That night, he sat by the chapel alone, watching stars bloom overhead. The desert was never silent, not really. Crickets sang. The wind whispered. And behind him, the low murmur of children's dreams drifted through the wood like smoke. He wasn't a father. He wasn't even a friend. But something was happening here, slow and dangerous like water in the cracks of rock. It was shaping him whether he liked it or not. And somewhere deep in his gut, he knew Ruthie was right. They were coming. It was just a matter of when. The man came to town on a horse that looked half dead and a coat too clean for a place like Brimstone Ridge. He wore spurs that didn't jingle and eyes that never blinked. No one saw him speak, but everyone felt it. The sudden shift in the air, the quiet tension that settles when danger walks into a room already sure it owns it. Bo spotted him from the far end of the saloon. He didn't need to ask who he was. The man gave off the same scent Bo once carried himself: hired blood, long roads, and the smell of a name spoken only in backrooms and whispers. The stranger took a slow drink of water, scanning the room without interest. When his gaze slid over Bo, he paused, not long enough to challenge, just long enough to confirm. Bo stood and crossed the floor. "You're not here for the drinks." The man didn't answer right away. Just set the glass down and folded his hands. "Name's Lang. I'm looking for a girl. Early 30s. Brown hair. Travels with children she ain't birthed." Bo's jaw clenched. "Don't sound like much of your business." Lang smiled with no warmth. "It is when someone pays me to make it mine." "What's she done?" Lang chuckled, low and dismissive. "Don't matter what she done. Matters who wants her back." Bo leaned forward. "Well, she ain't here." Lang's smile didn't fade. "Didn't say she was. But I'll find her. That's what I do." Bo held his stare a second longer, then walked out without another word. As he crossed the street, he felt Lang's eyes at his back like crosshairs. He rode straight for the chapel, dust curling behind his horse like smoke from a fuse. The wind had changed. It didn't howl, it whispered, sly and circling. When he arrived, Nora was hanging laundry near the chapel wall, a baby tied to her back with a worn scarf. She looked up as he dismounted, reading his face like scripture. "What is it?" "There's a man in town," Bo said. "Lang. Bounty hunter. Says he's looking for you." Her breath caught so sharply the baby whimpered. "Did he follow you?" "Don't think so. He's still sniffing around town. But he will come. And soon." Nora's hands dropped the laundry. "I've moved before. We'll go tonight." "No." Her eyes flared. "You don't get to tell me how to run. You don't know what's chasing me. Then tell me." She hesitated, a war behind her silence. Bo stepped closer. "Nora, if I'm putting myself between you and bullets, I want to know who's pulling the trigger." Her lips pressed thin, then finally opened. "The children aren't just orphans. Some of them were sold. Some escaped. One, Joey, he's the bastard son of a wealthy land baron in Denver. Man named Whitlow. Owns mines, rail contracts, men like Lang." Bo swallowed. "And Joey?" "Joey's mother worked in one of Whitlow's saloons. She ran. Died in childbirth. I was there. I took the baby. Later I took the others. Didn't plan it that way. But they found me. And I couldn't leave them." "Whitlow's got money?" "Endless." Bo stared out toward the horizon. "Then Lang won't be alone long." Nora's hands curled into fists. "We'll leave. We've done it before." "No," he said again, firmer. "You move now, he'll hunt you forever. You stand, we might buy some peace." She glared at him, fierce and shaking. "You don't get to make that decision." Bo looked her dead in the eye. "I already did." That night, the chapel filled with a different kind of silence. The children sensed it, the hush before a storm. Ruthie sharpened her knife without being told. Joey stopped asking questions and just watched the door. Bo stayed. He loaded every gun he owned, cleaned each one with ritual precision. He walked the perimeter 3 times. Placed broken bottles along the rear trail. Made noise around the brush line. Let anyone listening know they weren't helpless. Inside, Nora tried to keep normal. She braided hair, hummed lullabies, poured warm milk. But her hands shook when she thought no one watched. Bo saw it. Said nothing. Near midnight, Nora found him at the edge of the clearing, sitting on a rock like a gargoyle. "You sure you want this?" she asked. "No. But I know it's right." She sat beside him. The moonlight caught the edge of her cheek, the faint line of a scar that ran beneath her ear and disappeared into her hair. "How long since you ran from something?" she asked softly. He didn't answer for a long time. "Since my brother died. I left the gang that night. Left blood behind me. Never looked back until I found you." She looked at him. Not like a man. Like something ancient and broken. "You ever regret it?" He nodded slowly. "Every day. But less lately." Nora was quiet, then reached into her coat and handed him something small, folded, aged parchment. Bo opened it. It was a crude drawing. 8 stick figures holding hands drawn in charcoal. Daisy made that, she said. Said it's our family portrait. She didn't draw me in it. I asked why. She said I was the ground. Bo blinked. The ground? Yeah. She said I'm what they stand on. And that I never leave. He handed it back. She's right. Before dawn, the chapel lit with movement. Nora passed out tin mugs of broth. Ruthie counted bullets. Marta prayed. Joey practiced tying knots, hands fumbling. Bo checked the rifle he'd stashed in the tower window. When the first shot came, it was distant, an echo more than a warning. Nora froze mid-step. They're here. He moved like thunder. Inside. Keep the little ones low. Ruthie, stay by the front with me. Joey started to argue. Bo cut him off. You want to help? Protect the baby. Ruthie handed him a pistol with a chipped handle. Outside, the shadows moved in pairs. 4 men, rifles slung, fanning wide. Lang among them, walking like he owned the dirt under his feet. Bo Maddox, he called out. You got something don't belong to you. Bo stepped from the chapel, rifle raised. They belong to no one, he said. Lang grinned. You know how this ends. Bo sighted down the barrel. So do you. The shot cracked like lightning. One of Lang's men dropped. The others scattered behind rocks, returning fire. Gunfire erupted, sharp, fast, cruel. Dust flew. Wood splintered. Inside, children screamed. But no one broke. Ruthie knelt by a window, firing with calm breath. Marta fed bullets to Bo's revolver. Lang advanced slowly, firing between reloads. Give me the boy, he shouted. You can keep the rest. Bo snarled. You'll get him over my grave. Lang raised his pistol and fired. The bullet caught Bo in the shoulder, spinning him. Blood bloomed red down his sleeve. He fell hard but didn't drop the gun. Nora rushed to him, dragging him back. Don't die, she hissed. Not planning to. Lang was getting closer. Too close. Bo shoved his rifle at Ruthie. Shoot when I stand. You're hit. I said when I stand. He surged up with a roar, blood blinding him. Lang raised his weapon. But Ruthie's shot was faster. Lang dropped, face first, into the dust. Silence followed. Long and thick. Then the other men ran. Into the trees. Into the wind. Into anywhere but here. Bo sank back down, gasping. Nora caught him. You're insane. He smiled through blood. Takes one to raise 7. She laughed. Then cried. Just once. Inside the chapel, the children were already cleaning up. The baby slept through it all. Bo watched the sunrise through blurred eyes. We won't get peace, Nora whispered. No, he agreed. But maybe we'll get quiet. And for the first time in years, he believed it. The days after the gunfight blurred into each other, marked by the scent of healing herbs and the hush of children who had seen too much. Bo's wound festered before it began to heal. Nora sat beside him every night, changing bandages with hands that didn't shake, though her heart still hadn't stopped racing since the first shot fired. Outside the chapel, the world carried on like nothing had happened. The wind still combed the grass. The crows still circled. But something had shifted. Word had spread. Folks whispered about the woman with 7 children who stood her ground. And the man who bled for her. A letter came 2 mornings later, pinned to the side of the chapel with a knife too clean for this far out west. Ruthie found it and brought it in without a word. Nora unfolded the page slowly, fingers trembling for the first time in days. Bo watched her face as she read. Her lips tightened, then curled downward like a storm cloud settling behind her eyes. What is it? It's from Whitlow's lawyer. Her voice sounded distant. He says Lang was a mistake. A hired hand acting out of turn. Whitlow apparently regrets the misunderstanding. Bo narrowed his eyes. Misunderstanding? She handed him the letter. That's the word he used. Says we won't be troubled again, so long as we cooperate. Bo read it slowly, jaw tightening with each line. Cooperate how? They want Joey. Nothing more, nothing less. They'll forget the rest, forget me, forget the other children. But the boy, he's not negotiable. Joey, barely 10, sat nearby with Marta, helping her sort a tangled mess of yarn. He was small, quick to laugh, always watching, always listening. And now, for the first time, Bo saw something under his skin, quiet fear masked by obedience. Nora folded the letter again too carefully. They won't stop. No, Bo agreed. They're just changing tactics. That afternoon he walked the town's edge with Ruthie, who now wore her revolver like a badge. She kept pace with him, taller than most girls her age, harder than any child should be. You scared? He asked. She shrugged. Doesn't matter. He looked at her closely. It does. Fear's what keeps you sharp. It's what keeps you alive. She didn't answer. Just kept walking, her eyes scanning the horizon. Do you think we'll have to leave? She asked finally. Maybe. But I'd rather make them leave. That night they gathered in the chapel, everyone. Nora stood near the altar, her voice steady but low. They want Joey. They'll come again, maybe not with guns this time. Maybe with papers. With threats. But this place, it's all we've got. Bo stood too, favoring his injured side. We either defend what's ours or we become ghosts. Again. Ruthie raised her hand. So what do we do? He looked at Nora. She nodded. We build something real, she said. We make it more than a hiding place. So they did. The next few weeks became a frenzy of work. The chapel became a fortress. Windows reinforced with metal. Doors bolted twice. A trench dug near the back, hidden with brush, leading to the woods. An escape route should it come to that. But it wasn't just defense. They planted crops, real ones this time. Potatoes, beans, carrots. The soil here was stubborn but not impossible. Joey took to the dirt like it was a game, grinning when sprouts broke through. Marta and Daisy painted the inside of the chapel, bright colors and crude pictures of animals and suns and stars. Marta called it God's house with a child's laugh. Even Bo couldn't argue with that. Every evening, Bo taught the older children how to shoot, how to hide, how to think like people who needed to live through the impossible. Ruthie was his shadow, absorbing every lesson like gospel. Even Joey, though young, learned how to reload a rifle. Some townsfolk noticed. Some helped. Most didn't. The sheriff came once, scratching his balding head beneath his hat. Y'all preparing for a war? Bo just stared at him. Preparing to live. The sheriff sighed. Ain't no law can save you from men like Whitlow. They come with money, not badges. Then we'll answer with fire, Nora said from behind him. The sheriff looked at her for a long time, then tipped his hat. Just don't burn down the town with it. By the third week the children had smiles again. They laughed. They played games around the chapel at dusk. Nora even allowed a small birthday celebration when Marta turned 9. Bo found an old music box in town, fixed it with trembling hands and gave it to her. She cried when she heard it. But peace Bo knew was never real, it was borrowed time. The next visitor didn't come on horseback. He came in a black carriage with gold trim, pulled by 2 spotless white horses, a man in a suit sitting upright like he owned the world. Bo met him at the chapel gate, rifle over his shoulder. Mr. Maddox, the man said without looking up. You are as punctual as I expected. Bo said nothing. I represent Mr. Whitlow. My name is Hargrave. I'm here to deliver a final offer. Bo let the silence drag. Joey is not yours, Hargrave continued. He belongs to a man of wealth and position. His presence here is a liability. You will be compensated handsomely. And if we refuse? Hargrave smiled, thin and bloodless. Then the courts will become involved. Property will be seized. Warrants issued. And eventually the children will be taken. All of them. From the chapel door, Nora stepped forward, shotgun in hand. You ever try to take a child from me, Mr. Hargrave, and I promise I'll teach you what hell smells like. Hargrave didn't flinch. He just sighed. Sentimentality is a beautiful thing. But it's rarely practical. He handed Bo an envelope. You have 3 days. After that, we come with paper, not pistols. And this time, the law will be on our side. He left without looking back. Inside the envelope was a contract. Official seals. Notarized statements. The full weight of wealth and bureaucracy. They burned it that night. Around the fire, the children listened quietly as Bo and Nora explained what might happen. If they come, Bo said, we protect each other. We don't run unless we have no choice. But this place, this chapel, this ground, it's ours now. We earned it. Joey crawled into Nora's lap. He didn't speak. Just held on to her like a branch in a flood. Later, when the children slept, Nora found Bo by the fire, staring into the coals. You know they'll come. Maybe with marshals. Maybe with lawyers. But they'll come. I know, he said. We can't shoot paper. He smiled. No. But we can bury it. She sat beside him, knees brushing. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. He looked at her then, not like a protector. Like an equal. Like someone who finally had something worth bleeding for. This place, she said, it's not perfect. But it's ours. Bo nodded. And maybe that's enough. She reached into her coat and handed him a folded page, another drawing from Daisy. This one had all 8 children again, but this time 2 taller stick figures stood behind them. One with a long braid, the other with a rifle. She drew us this morning, Nora said. Said we're not just the ground anymore. Said we're the walls. Bo didn't speak. Just held the drawing in one blood-stained hand, his heart thudding like hoofbeats against his ribs. The fire crackled. And somewhere deep in the dark, a dog barked once. Warning. 3 days. That's all they had. The sun rose red that morning, the kind of red that made the horizon look like it was bleeding. Bo was already up, perched on the roof of the chapel with his rifle across his lap, eyes sweeping the distant road. His face was calm, but behind it churned a storm. Today was the day. Inside, Nora moved between the children, steady and precise. She packed food, filled water flasks, tightened the straps on every small backpack. She didn't need to tell the children what was happening. They knew. The silence between them was the loudest it had ever been. Ruthie checked the traps one last time, her fingers grazing the tripwire Bo had taught her to tie. If they come in fast, we'll have 30 seconds, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. She was 13, maybe 14, but in the past month she'd aged years. Marta clung to Daisy, brushing her sister's hair with shaking hands. Will we leave here? She whispered. Only if we have to, Nora said gently, kneeling in front of her. But if we do, we leave together. Always together. Down by the gate, the dust plume appeared around noon, right on schedule. Hargrave was punctual as promised. But this time he didn't come alone. 3 wagons followed him, each with 4 armed men. Behind them, 2 uniformed marshals on horseback, their badges glinting like medals of betrayal. Bo watched them from his perch. They brought the damn army. From the bell tower, Joey called out, 10 men. Maybe 12 if you count the ones in the second wagon. Bo glanced up, proud despite the panic tightening in his chest. The boy had become sharper than any blade. Nora stepped out onto the porch of the chapel, shotgun in hand, her braid falling loose over her shoulder. Hargrave dismounted with that same blank civility, brushing dust from his black coat. Miss Norris, he called. Let's not make this unpleasant. Too late, Bo muttered, climbing down from the roof. Nora didn't move. You have no right to take him. I have every right, Hargrave said calmly, waving the document in his gloved hand. Signed by Judge Waterford. Enforced by Marshal Dunley and his associate here. This is legal, Miss Norris. And inevitable. Bo stepped beside her. Legal don't mean moral. You came to steal a child, not enforce justice. Marshal Dunley shifted in his saddle. We don't want trouble. We're just here to collect the boy. That's it. Ruthie stepped out then, rifle in her hands, chin high. You'll have to go through us. Dunley frowned. This isn't a standoff, kid. It's law. You ever notice, Bo said, raising his voice, how men always talk about the law when they're doing something that ain't right? Hargrave gave a tight smile. Enough sentiment. Bring the boy out or we come in. No one moved. Then a gunshot cracked from the tree line. One of the hired men in the second wagon dropped with a yelp, grabbing his shoulder. Chaos erupted. Hold fire. Marshal Dunley shouted, drawing his weapon as the men dove for cover. But it was too late. The line had been crossed. From the chapel roof, Joey reloaded quickly, eyes narrowed, lips tight. He didn't shoot to kill, Bo had taught him that. Aim for arms, legs, anything that bought time and left a message. The message was clear. They would not go quietly. Bo pulled Nora back inside as bullets whizzed overhead. The children ducked into the crawl space below the chapel floor, whispering prayers with their hands clutched tight. Outside, Ruthie picked off another gunman from behind the garden wall, her face calm, her breathing measured. Marta stayed by the back door, ready to run for the woods if needed, Daisy's hand in hers. Inside the chapel, Nora crouched beside Joey, who had slid down from the bell tower and now reloaded behind the altar. You okay? She asked. He nodded, jaw clenched. You're not just a child anymore, she said. But that doesn't mean you have to be a soldier. I want to stay, he whispered. With you. Bo kicked open a side window and fired, sending 2 men scrambling behind the first wagon. They're flanking. Ruthie had already moved, slipping through the side trench toward the fence line. She knew every inch of that land now. It was hers more than theirs. Marshal Dunley crouched behind a fallen trough, cursing under his breath. He hadn't expected resistance like this. Hargrave, call them off. Hargrave stood, brushing dust from his shoulder. We finish this now. He stepped forward, raising his hands as if he were the one under siege. Enough, he shouted. You can't win. You're squatters, criminals, and you're harboring a child you don't own. Nora stepped into the doorway again. Neither do you. He's blood, Hargrave snapped. Beau's voice cut through the air like thunder. Then where were you when he was starving in the mines? When his mother died? Silence. A beat passed. Then another. Joey walked out, rifle slung over his shoulder, his steps slow, deliberate. You want to take me? He said. Then tell me my birthday. Tell me what my favorite color is. Tell me what my mother's voice sounded like when she sang. Hargrave said nothing. I'll wait, Joey said. Go on. But Hargrave couldn't answer. His mouth opened, then closed. He didn't know. Of course he didn't know. I don't belong to you, Joey said. Not now. Not ever. The silence was electric. Even the marshals hesitated. Dunley stepped forward, his voice low. Kid, this ain't about feelings. It's about paper. Joey looked at him. And who wrote that paper? His kind. Nora stepped beside the boy. This is a home. You don't bulldoze homes because a man waves a piece of ink. Marshal Dunley stared at her for a long time. Then he holstered his weapon. I came here to collect a boy, he said. What I see is a family. Hargrave's voice turned cold. You'll lose your badge. I'd rather lose my badge than my soul. He turned to the other marshal. We're done here. The remaining gunmen, seeing the tide shift, began backing toward their wagons. Hargrave's jaw ticked. This isn't over. Beau stepped forward, rifle in hand. You come again and I'll bury you myself. Hargrave met his eyes, and for the first time, there was fear in the man's expression. Real fear. Then he turned and climbed into the carriage, the door slamming shut with a finality that rang louder than any gunshot. The wagons rolled out, one after another, until the dust swallowed them whole. Silence fell again. Not the kind born of fear or hesitation. The kind that comes after a storm. The children emerged slowly. Marta first, then Daisy and Joey, who blinked in the harsh sun. Nora pulled him close, her arms wrapping around him like a shield. Beau exhaled and leaned against the chapel wall, eyes closed for the first time in hours. Ruthie walked back from the trench, gun across her shoulder. She looked at Beau. We won. He nodded. For now. That night they didn't speak much. Just sat around the fire, eating bread and stew, their bodies aching but whole. Marta played the music box and the melody floated over them like a blessing. Beau stared at the flames, his voice low. This place ain't just a hiding spot anymore. It's something else. Nora nodded. It's a beginning. Joey looked up at them, face soft in the firelight. What happens next? Beau smiled faintly. We live. That's what comes next. And under the vast stretch of stars, in a corner of the wild where law bent to justice and love stood taller than paper, they did just that. They lived. Together.